Test, test. All right.
Test, yeah. Test.
Test 1, 2.
Test, test. All right.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Hi, Steve. Yes, we can hear you. I think so if you can just turn your camera on until it's time for your presentation, because
Oh,
the
you
screen is
actually,
just going to be the dais.
you want me to actually have
Whatever
my
we're showing.
presentation on video?
Well, did you want to have your video on?
Oh, not necessarily. I can just do a verbal.
Okay, or turn your video on when it's time for you to present.
Okay, well,
Okay.
whatever.
Hey, good evening and welcome back. The council has just come out of closed session. I'm not sure, city attorney, is there anything to report at this time? Okay, we provided direction to staff. So with that, we will move to our regular meeting. This meeting will be held in accordance with Executive Order N29-20 issued by California Governor Gavin Newsom on March 17th, 2020. The Ralph M. Brown Act, California Government Code Section 54950, and the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act. This meeting will not be physically open to the public. All members of the public may participate and comment via the application Zoom. Zoom meeting information and call-in information is posted on the agenda and on the city's website. Remote public comment is also available by emailing the city clerk at cityclerk@ci.series.ca.us. The city clerk will read your comment into the record during the public comment period. So at this time, again, welcome to the regular city council meeting for Monday, June 22nd, 2020. Let the record reflect that all council members are present. That we will move to the, still need to take roll, or is that fine?
Probably take roll once more for the regular meeting.
Okay, so I'll have the roll call, please.
Councilmember Condit,
Here.
Councilmember Durasett,
Here.
Vice Mayor Rhino. Here. Councilmember Klein,
Here.
and Mayor Vieira.
Here. Next, we will have the invocation by Pastor Jim Stockwell. Fine.
Can you hear me?
And
Oh, great. Well, then let's pray. Thanks for allowing me to do this. You guys are doing an awesome job. So gracious and loving God, thank you for your many blessings to us. Thank you for allowing us to live in this city with its wonderful and diverse people. But we are facing a monumental challenge today with the COVID-19 and a heightened sense of racial injustice, strains on families and economic hardship. So with gratitude, we humbly pray for your elected representatives and our city staff. And we ask for your guidance during this meeting and also after the meeting as they carry out their duties. We pray that you would bless them with health, bless them with wisdom, bless them with sensitivity and boldness as they seek to lead us through these crises to a more blessed, equitable future. And as you have promised, heal our land. And we pray in Jesus' name, amen.
thank you. We will have the Pledge of Allegiance. We have no presentations this evening, so we will move to citizens' communication to council on matters not included on the agenda. While the city council welcomes and encourages participation in city council meetings, adopted rules allow no more than 5 minutes for expression of non-agenda items. Matters under the jurisdiction of the city council and not on the posted agenda may be addressed by the general public. However, California law prohibits the city council from taking action on any matter which is not on the posted agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the city council. Citizens are entitled to address the city council on any agenda item subject to the 5-minute provision. Public comments will now be accepted through Zoom. For those participating through the web, please raise your hand to request to speak. The hand icon on the bottom of the screen. If you're participating by telephone, please press 9 on your phone. City clerk will call your name in the order that requests are received. When it's your time to speak, the city clerk will unmute your microphone. City clerk will please provide the name of each of the person that has requested to speak. At this time, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on a non-agenda item? So please provide your name, record.
Mayor, the first person is Lee. Will unmute. Mic is unmuted.
Yeah, this is Lee Brandt. I just want to bring up, and I'm sure that everybody sitting here that lives within close proximity of Ceres has heard all the loud booms that are going on at night in the afternoons. It's really getting out of hand. I have no idea how the police are going to deal with it. I think what's happening is people are making bombs. What they do is they take a 2-liter plastic bottle, they empty it, they put a legal firework in there, like a Piccolo Pete. They light it, they cap it, and they toss it. And it just goes off big time. There is a website, not a website, but a Facebook page about downtown Ceres. And on it, one of the people commented that live over by Berry Grove Park. They watched somebody pull up, toss their bomb or big, whatever you want to call it, into the park and drive off. I don't know. I'm sure there's a sound ordinance somewhere. And I have no idea how the police are going to detect it because it's not fireworks going up in the air. Also, I would like to bring up the fact, is there a sound ordinance as far as exhaust pipes on cars? There are vehicles that race literally up and down Central Avenue. And I know Councilwoman Linda, she lives close to Central, and I know she can hear them. Everybody hears them, and it's getting really out of hand. There is somebody that takes off in my neighborhood at 11 o'clock every morning, and it is loud. I just wish everybody a safe and sane weekend, and good luck to the PD. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Rhino, I think, has some comments.
I do. I wanted to piggyback on what Mr. Brandt said about the fireworks. It seems like this year is even worse than it has been previously. And I know that we are taking special enforcement like we did last year. But I was trying to think of something outside the box on how in the world we can start minimizing some of the fireworks because it's every single night. It isn't like Friday night, Saturday night, it's every single night. And there's no possible way, I don't think, that the fire or the police can catch these people. Especially, we have one in our neighborhood that they have it figured out. They set off their big boom. They wait 12 to 15 minutes, 12 to 15 minutes. They set off another one. So there's no way that the police are ever going to catch them. I was thinking about it, and this is just strictly an out of the box kind of idea. But at times when Stanislaus County sheriffs are up overhead, the Air 101, I think they're called, and they're looking for someone. Has anyone ever thought to approach them and see what, if anything, they would charge us on, to come out maybe an hour or two, circle our neighborhoods? And I'm just wondering if that could do something to start diffusing some of the fireworks. I don't know any other way that we can do it from the ground. I don't know. Just a thought outside the box. But we have to do something because our patrols that are going to start are not going to be able to take care of it when people have already started for the last 2 weeks shooting them off.
Don't have any of the fireworks stands open. I don't believe so. No.
Well, but even if it was the fireworks stands that are setting them off, that's not the issue. It's
No,
all
no,
the-
I agree with you. I just
the
commenting, they're not,
illegal
they're
ones.
not getting them from around here.
No, no. So I don't know if that's something that you, Chief, have a close enough contact that you could even kind of open a discussion with the sheriff or not. Maybe it isn't something that's feasible, but I think we have to look at doing something entirely different than what we have been doing.
I can surely check with Sheriff Dirksey to see what who the airship is.
Thank you.
Next person is Jean Yakely. I've unmuted your mic, Mr. Yakely. Tried 3 times to unmute. Mr. Yakely.
Mr. Yakely, do you have a mute function on your phone or your tablet that you could try to unmute, please?
Having difficulty connecting.
Here we go. You got me?
We do.
Okay. I think I'm going to go somewhere that you guys don't want to go again, but this is happening again. And, you know, Lee Brandt's talking about fireworks. Things have gotten out of hand for many, many years. Hopefully you can hear this. This is from this a week ago, but then I have another one. I won't play that one from Saturday. So they're a week apart. Did you hear that? Hello?
Yes, we did.
Okay. This is still going on in my neighborhood, and I talked to Captain Crane today, and over the weekend, you know, I talked to Officer Sosa, and but I wanted to bring this up tonight to you and the City Council on these issues again. And I had talked to the City Council. It's been about 14 months ago. This was brought up again, and I guess there was a newspaper article that was quite apparent, and it told of my problems and stuff with extreme musical noise. Well, these things are still going on. They got live bands and PA systems, and we're not talking about record players and stuff like that, little stereo sets. These are full-blown systems that you would have in a nightclub. They got live bands, PA systems, guitars, trumpets, sousaphones, tubas, singing, and it's all amplified. That particular incident a week ago and the one this last Saturday, just a couple of days ago, one was about, I'd say 110, 120 yards away. And the second one, exactly 7 days later, was just about four houses from the house that did it the week before. Same kind of music, you know, a little bit different vibration to it as far as words or whatever, tones, but still very loud. And because of the issues of loud music, my personal property of a vehicle was vandalized Saturday night, June 20th. It turns out it's going to be very expensive to fix it. It was from the front fender all the way to the back of the truck bed, a big scratch mark all the way down. I would venture that there's many homeowners like myself that would like to complain, but are afraid and thus become prisoners of their own neighborhoods and homes. And some of these people, I more than likely feel captive in their own homes, like they're prisoners, of course. Where's the stability in our city? Enough is enough. Please embed the ability to eliminate these outrageous parties with playing amplified devices that resonate through our neighborhoods. Law enforcement can only do what is dictated to their department. Some individuals are controlling our city. It's obvious, this goes on and on. Isn't it the city that says enough is enough, or will we give in to their wants? Those individuals have damaged my personal property, and they've sent me a message. Is my bodily injury or death my next step outside my home? I want to let you know my situation in case something happens to my wife or my extended family. This type of treatment, I believe, is lean towards racism to my family. Go back to the ordinance to where it mentions no louder than those listening can hear and cannot go beyond that. As city council, you can make some speedy changes to improve our environment while living here. Please do something. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Is there, I'm assuming when we have a complaint like this that we send someone out to speak with the resident that's having the party or what have you, and ask them to quiet down or?
Yes, we do. Standard practice, we'll go out there. We'll assess the noise level when we get there into the area. It's how many houses down it goes. And if we hear it from the street, we'll make contact with the owners. We'll advise them that there's a problem, request that they turn it down. We'll explain the citation process if we do get a repeat call and have to come back out, and where the fines start with that for any subsequent calls that continue on that.
I have a question. When the police get a call, do they just do a drive-by, or do they actually get out and make contact with the person? Because in my situation, when I have the neighbor who likes to blast his music at 2 a.m, it's at the back of his house, which is where my bedroom is. And so I don't know if it would be as noisy to an officer driving down the street if they didn't just stop and like walk up into the property. Do they not do that? They just do a drive-by? I think Mr. Yeakley said before that's what they do.
Well, it would depend on the type of call. And when the dispatcher talks to them is where the music's coming from, where the noise is coming from. If it's one of those that's in a backyard, then the officers probably would get out and make contact because they wouldn't be able to hear that from the street. If they don't have that information and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and we drive by and a house looks dark and we don't hear anything, chances are we're not going to go knock on their door and try to wake them up to see if it is their yard.
I understand that.
It would depend on the call and where the music was going or noise was coming from.
So in Mr. Yeakley's case, when he has to call in the future, he needs to let the dispatch know where he's at hearing the music, so then they're aware of where he's at, correct? So that they don't just do the drive-by.
Well,
I don't know in his situation if it's at the back of his house or if it's at the front. I don't know.
When I talked to Mr. Yeakley today, the calls that he has for noise are actual bands with speakers they're playing. The officers are making contact on those to advise them of that. I haven't seen any calls in the last year that I could pull up that show that an officer just drove by and they didn't hear anything and just kept going. Now, if there's specific instances where that's happening, I would be more than happy to talk to Mr. Yeakley and get those specific incidents and look into them. But when I was talking to him today and I was pulling up our calls on those, everything looks like that we're making a contact.
Councilmember Klein?
So when you were saying you get a call out, and they make initial contact with the residents, and you tell them the process of citations and stuff like that, and they get no more callbacks that day, if the same residence gets a callback the next day or the day after, does the process start all over again? Or is that initial contact from a day or two before carry over saying, listen, we've been here, every other day, and you cite them? Or how does that process work?
There's no hard, fast rule on that. So there's nothing that's in black and white that says it stops after one warning, after first day, second day. It really comes on case-by-case basis on that. So if they're having a party, first night, we give them a warning, they turn it down. The second night we go out, for instance, same thing that we had the night before, they don't have to give them another warning on that. But if it's not a party, if it's just some other type of noise that is not a party, really up to the officer on that point if they're going to make another warning on that. Hey, this noise is also bothering your neighbors, to knock it off or to issue the citation. But there's no hard fast rule that we have to give warnings for multiple days.
Councilmember Drossett?
Yeah, Captain Crane, real quick. The fines, how do the fines actually, like $50, $100, $500? It just depends on the
I
situation.
believe it's 250, 500, and 1,000.
And after the first warning, it becomes 250?
Correct.
Have we cited anybody in Mr. Eakley's neighborhood yet? That I know he's been here quite a few times, and he's
I
got
believe we
concerns.
have issued some citations, but to be the exact number, I'd have to go back and pull them to see exactly what the numbers are. But we have issued some citations. One of the things that we needed for the citation was for Mr. Yeakley to be a victim, where before he would call in, he didn't want contact, he didn't want to be a victim. So it kind of handcuffs us, because to have a crime, we got to have a victim. So he was starting to give us his name. We were going out there, and I have seen some citations that were issued within that neighborhood, but the exact number, I'd have to go back and take a look.
And so, like, just an example, I know that people have cameras around their houses and stuff like that. Were they able to catch the bad guys that hurt his car, ruined his car, or is that just something that, we're probably not going to catch those guys? And
Based on the police report that I read today, there were no suspect info. There was a gathering next door to Mr. Yeakley, and that suspect is that where it may have came from. However, we have no evidence to prove that. There's about a 20-hour gap from the time Mr. Yeakley last saw his vehicle till he found it vandalized. So in 20 hours, a lot could have happened. So we're still looking into it. It is a felony. The damage was estimated in excess of $3,000, which would make it a felony.
hopefully we catch him. Thank you.
Next person with their hand raised is Renee Dunstein Gaskill. I will unmute your mic.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Local officials have said that there is a need to change and to condemn racism, but still support Ted House for Congress. House has made a series of comments demeaning Latinos and other minority groups on social media for all to see. Speaking to House at the county fair last year, he proudly shared that our series mayor had endorsed him along with several other mayors locally. I'm asking tonight for Mayor Vieira to state that he no longer endorses him or to provide his reasoning for continuing to support and endorse a racist candidate for Congress. Especially in this tumultuous time, series needs to be inclusive, and Howe's statements most definitely do not represent that. Secondly, I would like to share that I attended the recent protest in March a couple of weeks ago and would like to say thank you to the police department for their professionalism in protecting the protesters and the march. I was proud to see Ceres was able to protest without violence. Thank you.
Next person is June. Mic is unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I would also like to speak to you, Mayor, in your continued endorsement for Mr. House. You may recognize my name, June Mills, because I called you a couple of weeks ago about this and you didn't return my call. I wanted to tell you that this is a serious situation in District 10, and I didn't want it to come to this. Mr. House has shown who he is by having a number of racist things on his computer that he didn't take off until he chose to run again for the position in District 10 of the for the House seat. When he did that, when he decided, then he removed them, but someone had already captured them. And it's been tossed around in the B. There have been a lot of letters to the editor. And I don't think that his beliefs represent the people of the city of Ceres, nor do I think that it represents the people of District 10. Mr. House showed himself in January in front of 500 people at the State Theater. He was loud, overbearing, and insulted his fellow participants. And he made incorrect, damaging statements about Representative Josh Harder, who he was sitting right next to. Representative Harder called him on it, and then of course the B, since they were sponsoring the event, found that Mr. House
Excuse me, Ms. Mills,
was
I'm not sure
false.
that this doesn't have anything to pertain to the city council or city business. So if you could kind of stick to that point, I would appreciate that.
Yes, I had just finished what I was going to say. And I think that in my first sentence, I asked the mayor to take his endorsement away from Mr. House. I don't think that he represents the type of people that we should be hoping to be.
Appreciate your comments, Mrs. Mills, but for the record, first of all, you did not try to contact me. I don't have any voicemail or record of any call from you. Secondly,
Well, I talked to someone.
Excuse me, let me finish, please.
I'm sorry.
You finish.
I didn't know you were still speaking.
My endorsement has nothing to do with the city council nor the city business. So if you would like to talk about that on a separate item, outside of this meeting, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. But again, I'm flattered that you think that my endorsement carries that much weight with people that it makes a difference. I'm not sure it does anymore, but anyway, if anyone else wants to speak on this specific topic, I'm not going to entertain that any longer because again, it's not related to city business or city council business, because I don't speak for all of the cities or all the citizens, I should say.
You speak for yourself. I don't think that it's doing you any good. There are still 3 mayors in the area that have that are endorsing him. I did call the mayor's phone number. A woman.
Again, I'm sorry, this has nothing to do with city business. So if you'd like to talk about something related to city business,
I did call you.
No, you did not.
Sir, don't.
Again, I'm not going to argue with you.
The mayor's number, and I asked to speak to you, and I was told that you weren't there, but she took my name and number and said she would give you the message. Now, I don't know who answers your phone when you're not there. I am not familiar with how that works. It used to be the executive secretary, but I haven't been an employee of the city for 20 years, so I don't know how it works now. But I did call you, and telling me that I didn't over and over is insulting. I'm through.
I have no message, so.
Next person is Melissa. Mic is unmuted. You allow your mic.
shows that Lee is.
Mic is muted. Text through it.
Center top.
Okay, how about now?
Now we can hear you.
Yeah,
Had your hand
apparently I
raised.
muted myself. I just wanted to go back to our loud boom booms. Now it's working again.
Mayor, we have.
Yeah,
Now
I'd like to
I'm
get through the
unmuted
other.
again. Anyway, I wanted to go back to,
Want him to.
Yeah, I'd like to get through the other speakers first, Lee, if you don't mind, because we have some other people that would like to speak. We're having a little challenge getting them unmuted.
Several times.
Melissa, do you have a phone or a computer that's on mute, perhaps?
So, like I said earlier, so we have June. So I received one email from Chris Ricky. He states the Central Valley has been a racist place for a very long time. But for its leaders to continue to support the racist.
That's all right. Go ahead, might as well
It's
read it.
absolutely unacceptable. We all know that he has said it wasn't him. It is so obvious that he is lying that even Republicans like Kevin McCarthy can't back this guy. Issues of racism keep coming to light in our communities, whether it's sheriff officers beating up innocent people, portable in Oakdale at the protest a couple of weeks ago, firefighters celebrating, letting Black Lives Matter splatter, a militia showing up in Oakdale or Stanislaus County retweeting Republican propaganda. Yes, do I hear local officials calling this out? Do I hear the mayor? Yet do I hear local officials calling this out? Do I hear the mayor Fury's rescinding his endorsement for Ted House? That if they do nothing, this will blow over. It won't stand. Stand up and do the right thing. History watching Chris. Um,
All right, with that, we will move on to appointments to boards and commissions. Looks like this item,
We'd have to, since it was on the agenda.
we have to
So,
still,
yeah,
okay.
say that.
So the Measure H Oversight Committee appointment. Update, or do I just continue that item? Okay, so at this point, we were working through this appointment process, so I would ask for a to next council meeting.
I can concur with the mayor. We'll continue it.
just so the council knows, the applicants able to get a hold of for the interview, for the one asked. Okay, so we haven't had an opportunity to meet with any of them. With that, we will continue this item to the next council. Conflict of interest declaration. Is there anyone on the council that would like to declare a conflict of interest on any of the consent calendar items or public hearing items? Hearing none, we will move the consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are considered routine in nature and will be enacted by a single motion unless otherwise requested by an individual council member or the public for special consideration. Otherwise, the recommendation of staff will be accepted and acted upon by roll call vote. This time, is there anyone on the council that would like a consent calendar item pulled for further discussion?
Items 7 and 10.
7.
10.
And item number 11.
Right. Is there anyone in the audience that would like a consent calendar item pulled for further discussion other than items 7, 10, or 11? Oh, please raise your hand.
Diane, what do you want?
We can hear you.
No, I wasn't, I was on, I had my hand up a long time ago and before Lee Brandt, and I thought you were going to take another thing I wanted to say, but you know, I guess she just saw it or something and turned me on. I didn't have anything on those issues.
It looks like there are none. If she has an item she'd like pulled.
June?
Right, with that, I'll bring it back to the council for direction on the other item.
I'll move to adopt 1, 2, 3, 8, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, A and B, and 12.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Can we have the roll, please?
Member Condit?
Aye.
Councilmember Durasett?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhino?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Mayor Vieira?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item number 7, resolution number 2020-61, awarding the construction contract for the 2020 pavement preservation project to Pavement Coatings, Inc., authorizing a 10% contingency and authorizing the city manager to execute the contract. Vice Mayor Rhino?
Can I ask you, Mr. Westbrook or Mr. Padilla?
Just go ahead and ask your question and we'll see who can respond.
Okay. The staff report says that the project will be funded by Measure L and SB1 funds. But my question is it written that we have a guarantee on those funds? Or is it just a projection of what StanCog is believing they're going to give us and that it could change based on what the taxes really turn out to be? I can hear you.
I don't think the Zoom can hear you though without that.
Like on the Measure L funds, last couple years we received, Letitia, correct me if I'm wrong, over $1 million. And for this project, we were only budgeting $700,000. For the SB1 RMRA funds, it's a special funding source within SB1. It's called Road Maintenance and Rehabilitation Account, RMRA. On that one also, we're projecting, or last year, 800,000, and we're only using for this project 450,000. So we're taking extremely conservative numbers to be able to award this project. And actually, to budget the project, we budgeted 1.15 million, but the bids came in really low because oil prices are significantly down, and the prices were about 25% less than we anticipated. So we're extremely conservative with these numbers, and there shouldn't be any issues.
So with the projections for Measure L and SB1 funds, have we used any of that other money and that same projected amount of money that you're talking of for any other projects this fiscal year?
For the SB1 RMRA, this is the only project. For the Measure L projects, there are a few more projects, but it's still significantly less than last year or the year before.
But we didn't have COVID last year. So we don't know that the projections are how accurate they are, even if they are conservative. But my question is, even if we're looking at taking a conservative number for what we should be getting, what if the numbers that StanCog is projecting are actually lower, and we go ahead and award this contract and we really don't get what we think we're going to get from StanCog, then we're on the hook. Because we don't have an actual number.
But
Correct?
What we can do is not award the next Measure L projects. I mean, even if if we're this project will spend $400,000 of Measure L money, so that's probably 33% of the amount we got last year. So even with the coronavirus, I don't think we would be receiving in revenue only 35% of what we received last year. That's what I'm saying. We're being extremely conservative with this project. I mean, we're not going to get 25% of what we received last year in Measure L funds. We've actually gotten in the last couple months, the last Measure L payment we received, I talked to Mr. Westbrook about it, and I calculated it was about 10% less than what we typically get per month.
Per month. Okay. So you have no guarantee that StanCog is saying that this is the amount we should give you, but if we don't give it to you, there's no way that we can hold StanCog to it because they didn't receive the funding. Is that correct?
That's correct, but we're taking very conservative projections. I mean, we're taking a third of what we normally get from StanCog. I don't think we can be any more conservative than that.
When does StanCog know? When do they actually receive the Measure L money, and then they can dole it out? When do they actually?
We get a payment every month, and I think we're probably 2 or 3 months in arrears.
Oh, so we're in arrears.
No, what I'm saying is, they from the sales tax that we get two or 3 months ago, we get paid.
So they're behind 2 or 3 months in paying for the sales
That's
tax.
the process. I wouldn't say they're behind. That's just the normal procedure.
Okay.
I don't think it's not that they're behind. It's just
I get
that
it.
process takes that long.
Kind of like our property tax.
And the one thing I would also say, even if it doesn't come through StanCog, which I highly doubt that happened because he's so significantly low, and we're not hearing, or at least when I was there wasn't any concern with COG getting that money. Also, these are projects that have to be done. So if we don't use this funding to do it, we're going to have to use other funding, or it's the old adage, pay me now or pay me later. We'll pay twice as much by not doing it because the roads will continue to degrade. So this is something that, we have to do. It's long overdue. I can tell you that by streets that I drive on in the north part of the city. And this is not a huge contract. I mean, we're talking 400,000.
And we're also getting a outstanding deal. You know, this is one of the few benefits of the coronavirus, and getting oil prices are way down, and the bids came in 25% less than we anticipated. So that's, you know, another reason to take advantage of these bids.
Well, but we know what I think of the last project we had done with the other contractor. He may have been the low bidder, and maybe there was a reason he was the low bidder, because the job he did, there's no other way to say, but it sucked. That within 30 days, we had cracks in the street, we had weeds growing up, and it still hasn't been resolved. And how much money did we pay them? So just because they're the low bidder doesn't necessarily mean that much to me. I just hope that they're a better contractor than the last one that we used.
Well, I mean, the three bids we got this year were the same the last couple years, and these three contractors do business with cities throughout California. So it's not they're not a mom and pop type contractor, and it is just resurfacing, you know, the slurry. So it's not, you know, a thick pavement layer they're placing down. So, you know, we went out there and looked at the roads a few times, you know, and got input from our inspectors and our construction manager, and you know, they did. We thought they did a very good job. I mean, it's not a perfect job, but we thought they did a very good job.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this item?
Move to adopt resolution number 2020-61.
Second.
Second, can we have the roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Condit?
Aye.
Councilmember Durasett?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhino?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Mayor Vieira?
Yes.
5-0.
Hey, resolution number 2020-65, awarding the construction contract for the River Bluff Regional Park Lower Terrace Phase 2B kayak ramp to Sierra Mountain Construction, Inc., authorizing a 10% contingency and authorizing the city manager to execute the contract. Vice Mayor Rhino?
I have the same question about where the funding is coming from on the kayak ramp.
So I'm looking at the staff report here. It's Fund 248. Tisha, can you help me out? And what is Fund 248? Is that neighborhood or Eastgate Storm Drain Benefit District? We had three different funds that were funding River Bluff Park, and then because we built most of the park a couple months ago, we completed that project. This was the remaining portion of the project. So that's coming from the Eastgate Storm Drain Benefit
The whole
Fund.
amount is from the Eastgate Storm Drain project? Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on this item? I'll look for direction.
Move to adopt resolution number 2020-65.
Second. Motion and a second. Can we have the roll call?
Councilmember Condit?
Aye.
Councilmember Durasett?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhino?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
And Mayor Vieira?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
To resolution number 2020-66, authorizing an agreement for the continuation of a school resource officer MOU with the Ceres Unified School District for the Ceres Resource Officers, SROs, to provide law enforcement services to the school district. Condit?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a hypothetical question, and I direct it towards Chief Collins. Hypothetically speaking, if COVID continues and the second wave comes and the schools are potentially closed due to the virus, how will the SROs be utilized in our department?
Can be used in a number of fashions. One can continue to assist the unit, and the other 3 could be used.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Chief. I appreciate
Would we still be able to have the school district pay for those officers?
I would imagine.
Question for direction on this item?
it. I move to approve resolution number 2020-66.
Second.
Motion and a second. Can we have the roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Condit,
Aye.
Councilmember Durasett,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhino,
Yes.
Councilmember Klein,
Yes.
and Mayor Vieira.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. We have no unfinished businesses this evening, so public hearing, item number 13, public hearing to consider resolution number 2020-67, approving the engineer's annual report, confirming the assessment and ordering a levy for the 1997 landscaping and lighting district for fiscal year 2020/2021. Yeah,
This should be pretty brief. Each year, per the Streets and Highway Code, city needs to reset the assessments for the landscaping and lighting district. City Council has adopted a resolution determining to undertake the proceedings and now must approve the report, confirm the assessment and diagram, levy the assessment and order the levy, and certify that the levy of assessments is in compliance with Prop 218. So these are all existing landscape and lighting district assessments. Many of the assessments are capped at a set dollar amount, and the rest of them can only be raised in accordance with the West Urban Consumer Price Index. And this year it was, I believe, 2.48%. So, I mean, with that, I don't know if the council has any questions.
I'll have any questions on this item? All right, at this time, I'll open up to the public. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment or question on item number 13?
There are no hands raised.
Bring it back to the council for direction on this item.
Move to adopt resolution 2020-67.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have the roll call?
Councilmember Condit,
Aye.
Councilmember Durasett,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhino,
Yes.
Councilmember Klein,
Yes.
and Mayor Vieira.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item number 14, public hearing to consider resolution number 2020-68, establishing the annual assessment levy for the 2021 fiscal year on the businesses in the downtown area defined in the Ceres Downtown Revitalization Area Board, CDRAB, annual report for the activities and programs of Ceres Downtown Revitalization Area Board for fiscal year 2021. Didn't Mr. Plum on the line, or?
Good evening,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council. The item, this is Steve Hallam, Ceres Redevelopment and Economic Development Manager. The item before you this evening is a request to consider assessing a levy on all businesses that are located in the Ceres Downtown Revitalization Area for next fiscal year 2020-21. The revitalization area was formed in 1989 for the purposes of generating revenue to assist in the maintenance, upkeep, and revitalization efforts of downtown Ceres. Since its origination, an assessment has been levied each year on all businesses within the boundaries, and the funds raised from this assessment are restricted in their purpose. They must be used to pay for projects and activities that promote and positively contribute to the enhancement of the downtown commercial district. The levy that we are proposing has not changed since its adoption and first levied in 1989. Generally assesses $10 to $25 per month on all businesses based on gross receipts. For the next fiscal year, this assessment is expected to raise approximately $13,800 for district activities. And as identified in the annual report that we approved 2 weeks ago, the funds, including reserve funds in that budget, will pay for electricity for the downtown streetlights, rotation of seasonal overhead banners, continued funding for a matching grant element for the design assistance program, 2 planned projects consisting of a wayfinding sign program and a look at possible downtown development incentive programs as we move out of COVID-19 times, and all landscape maintenance in the district. Once again, staff is not proposing any increase in the annual rate of assessment for fiscal year 2021. So this evening, the council is asked to take the following two actions. First, open up the public hearing for the purpose of taking testimony by anyone who wishes to speak on the subject. And by the way, all the business owners have been notified of the commission hearing, tonight's hearing as well. And the second action would be to consider staff recommendation to adopt the proposed resolution to establish and assess a levy on all businesses located in the Ceres downtown revitalization area for fiscal year 2021. I'm available for any questions that the council may have.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any questions of the staff before I open it up? To the general public? Hearing none at this time, I'll open it up to the public. Anyone that would like to comment or address the council on the annual assessment levy for the downtown area, raise your hand. Seeing none, we will bring it back to the council for either further discussion or direction.
To adopt resolution number 2020-68.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have a vote, please?
Councilmember Condit?
Aye.
Councilmember DeRosa?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhino?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
And Mayor Vieira.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Hey, item number 15. This is the public hearing for the city council to consider a proposal rezoning of the property located at the northeast corner of East Hatch Road and Gulf Links Drive to modify the existing MX2 mixed use 2 zoning designation to a CC community commercial zoning designation in the Mitchell Road Corridor Specific Plan. To consider an appeal of the Planning Commission's decision approving a vesting tentative parcel map and a specific plan site plan entitlement involving the subdivision of a 2.16 acre commercial zone site into 3 parcels with a new commercial building proposed for each parcel. Like there is a request from the applicant that the hearing be continued to July 27th, 2020. Correct, Mr. Westbrook?
That's correct, Mayor Vieira. The applicant's representative knows that it's going to be important for all parties that are interested to speak on that item to be in the council chambers at that time. They didn't feel that Zoom was going to be the appropriate method to take public testimony for that item. Also, the applicant's representative is concerned about the COVID and the impact that that may have, so they wanted to make sure that it was pushed back far enough so that we could actually hold a open session in the council chambers.
In light of the face covering and not having an in-person meeting, we don't know when that's going to happen, do we?
Correct. We don't know that when that's going to happen in March. When we continued it to this June date, we thought we would hope that we were well past the COVID pandemic, and we are not. The applicant's representative had submitted this date more than a couple of weeks ago. So this face covering issues that we're dealing now with throughout the state of California was not realized. And so quite possibly the June 27th date may be a little close as well. Just that because it was continued to this date,
Sure.
We could put it on the 27th and continue it if we needed to at that point in time, or select a date that's farther out than the June or the July 27th rather.
What's the council's will? We want to, Vice Mayor Rhino?
Well, I would hope that by July 27th, we can start having public, because from what I understand, but we have, I think, more than enough room that we could stagger people out. And if there was a concern that we could have an overfill or an overflow group, couldn't we have someone from staff or recreation outside with the Zoom capability that everyone would have the ability to talk?
Yeah, I
Is
think
there some reason that we could not have a public meeting on the face covering and the 60?
unless things change from the state, there's no reason that we couldn't do that. Because of our capabilities now, we could broadcast from this room into the next room, the large assembly, if we needed to.
And personally, I think we kind of have to try to do. I mean, we can't keep holding off important things like this because of Zoom. And if we have the ability to open the meeting, I think we should try to do.
Anyone else on the council? Comment on? So I guess the first thing I would say is firm with the applicant that they still want July 20th. If they do, I think the council's direction be that we would continue it to July. The attorney? It would, a date certain? Okay.
My only concern with this is, having talking with both parties is that maybe this meeting needs to go into that big room because they're going to have a lot of people here on both parties, both sides, explaining why it's good and why. I think if we have half of them in that room and the other half in this one, then it's still like you're doing it at home.
But how many people can we?
Maybe 50. But I'm not sure how it would be oriented. And family groups could be sitting together. It's just that
Could we have 50 come in and then when they get done speaking, well, we could still be broadcasting.
Well, or maybe as Councilmember Delossett says, could we set up a council meeting for a special meeting? I mean, would it be a harder thing than to do here? And then they can broadcast and then they could still have their comment.
yeah, there's not cameras in the other room, so we wouldn't be able to do that. Audio only.
But I think you're right, Mayor, that if it's broadcast in that other room, overflow, they still have the ability to.
Well, I would venture to say if we're going to have it in that other room, broadcast it on Zoom, like a regular council.
That's correct.
We can house 100 people in there safely, or, I mean, I know the room seats 500, right?
It seats 300 when they're seated at tables, about the max
Or
capacity.
even half of that, 150. I don't know how more than 150, but you could probably accommodate that. So I don't know that we'd need to worry about it. It would still be broadcast, but it would just wouldn't be.
Right, we would be going back to the way we did pre-COVID.
I'll do whatever.
Have you guys had an opportunity to meet with the other parties?
We're going to, for all
Right.
happen.
No, one party that I had talked with recently, not that recently, because it's been pushed off, is that they're really interested in at least having an opportunity to speak with you guys before it comes to the diet. Which that one's not going to sway one way or the other, but it's, just getting information and all the information. It's a lot. I'm telling you right now, dealing and talking with GDR, who are the people that are representing the individuals that want to build River Oak and people. I would just advise, you don't have to, but I mean.
Okay,
I know that
but I think the direction we have to make is we have to continue to a date certain. If the applicant's representative said July the 27th, then we should 7th instead of picking another date.
When they submitted the letter, yes, it was July 27th, but we did receive that letter a couple weeks ago.
Having looked at this lot, this is just dealing with one part.
That's correct.
What about the part
That's not a part of this
This
application.
will be precedent setting for happen. Is it different ownership or
Different ownership.
there's a lot? And we don't have anything on upcoming for that other piece?
There's been no application filed.
Like to do.
And I'm going to go back to applicant's request to continue the hearing to July the 27th.
By the way, do we know if we have any of the applicants in the audience that might want to press the date? And see if they're good with July 27th?
It does not appear that there's anyone from the applicant's representative attending.
I'm okay with the 27th if that's what the group wants. I'll look for someone.
Real quick, suppose I got a text that they can't hear us. If somebody could check the,
Applicant can't hear us.
people within the community.
Yeah, but it's safe to say, this is not the only meeting. I've been like 3 or 4 other ones. Air district meeting was cutting in and out. Even to change the date? Okay. Okay. So, well, before I did do that, can we come to the conclusion on the date that we're tentatively looking, and then I'll open that up?
With the 27th.
I am.
I'm fine as long as the public can.
Okay, so at this time, it looks like we're okay with the applicant's request for July 27th. So I'll open up the public hearing if there was anyone speak on, comment on that.
Do not see any.
Over with that, so someone needs to make a motion.
I thought Vice Mayor Rhino made a motion to continue to 27th early. So
I agreed.
Second. So we have a motion and a second. Can we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Condit?
Aye.
Councilmember Durasett?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhino?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
And Mayor Vieira?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, item number 16, resolution number 2020-69, adopting an interim budget for the city of Ceres for the 2020-2021 fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending September 30th, 2020, and resolution number 2020-70, adopting appropriation limitations for fiscal year 2020-2021.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. This is kind of continuation from your meeting of June 8th. Direction was provided to bring back a budget that went through September 30th of 2020. So tonight we're preparing this, just a PowerPoint, so that we can kind of go through a quick overview and so the public can see what is being presented. The general fund budget, in the current proposal, the beginning balance of our reserves was 5.66 million. Our projected revenues are 23.6 million in this proposed budget. Projected expenses, if you take all of the recommendations of staff, sit at 24.2 million. And that's a general fund expenditures of about 23.9%. So for the fiscal year that we're in, projected revenues were a little slightly below budget, but also our projected expenses were below budget as well. A lot of that was salary savings. So we do expect to add around $800,000 to the budget this year. Those will be salary savings. And additionally, as we get into August timeframe, we will have an audit budget, and there's some operation costs that most likely saved both of our budget as well that will contribute to next. The draft fiscal budget for the 2020 frame, big picture view is unknowns relating to the pandemic. Additionally, as the council is aware, there's some impact to the sales tax revenue, which we won't fully realize reporting later August of this year. The upcoming fiscal year where revenues are projected at less than the current year. The expenditure forecast is an increase due related to salary increases in MOUs with employees. There's some additional positions that were added that we'll discuss later on, in addition to retirement and health insurance cost. One of the things that this budget does not account for is recently Stanislaus County allocated $15 million to the local cities in the CARES Act funding. This was some of the federal stimulus based upon the population of the city. Areas would get about 1.6 million in allocation. None of that money has been included in the budget.
Money can only be used for COVID, correct?
There are certain restrictions on that funding, and it's COVID-related expense. The budget process started February. The internal services funds, our fleets department, in addition to they also generate the fixed cost for some of the utilities that we get. Departments create their budget, files that budget, and then the city manager reviews with each of the departments. So this chart, just a little changes in revenue. On the right side is what you are seeing in the draft. What it shows is our expenditures are just exceed our revenues, our projected revenue. Last year was, or the current fiscal years, it was a little around the other way. So the revenue projection exceeded the expenditures. As the council has seen this before, this is the changes in revenues and expenditures. Blue line is the revenue, shows what is being spent on. The red line, which is salaries and benefits. And our operating costs are identified as all other, which the biggest things that make up our projected revenue for the city. One is sales tax. This projection, conservative in nature, it suggests that $6.8 million sales tax. This is the number that we'll be waiting on. August report back. Initial indications is it could be anywhere from 10 to 12% sales tax revenue differential, being a loss from the current pandemic. Our property tax, essentially it's flat to the current fiscal year, projected to the next fiscal. $2.3 million. Motor vehicle and lieu fee increases slightly, $5,000. Cannabis development agreements, as the council is aware, one of the DAs was renegotiated in this year, April this year. Two more development agreements are set to expire in November and December, respectively. Working with the finance director, we kind of put some conservative projections together what we might see in the revenue sources in the future. As I mentioned, Muni Services will be getting us forecasts, which they do frequently. We'll have a better idea of what that sales tax revenue will be in late August of this year. Future growth, as the council is well aware, and some of the public members are too, that Walmart is inching toward the ultimate construction of their project, closest they've been in any time frame. One of the things is we don't know if this pandemic is going to have a recession. It could do that, which would impact our sources of revenue. And then I mentioned in the cannabis slide that there's a development agreement terms with the two remaining development agreements, one expiring in November and one in January. Some of the changes from the draft budget, we included the capital improvement program, and then we finalized items.
Mr. Westbrook,
Yes.
can you explain capital improvement? That funding from sources totally
Could be
not
grant.
general fund?
It's not general fund. It could be grant funds. It could be state and federal funds. It's revenue we've received and for projects that we're going to do for our water and our sewer system. Those are the capital improvement program. This is the proposed projections, and I've provided a slide for the council so you can look at that. So you can see next to just to the left side of the column, there is 2019/20 estimated budgetary reserves for 5.6 million. Be down through that list all the way to the bottom because of salary savings not realized from freezing some of the positions, and as positions were vacated over the year time frame, there's about $780,000 that we're estimating that fiscal year. Put that into the yellow column. We begin with a budget of 6.4 million in our reserve bank. Then we look at the kind of the top of that sheet. You can see the total number of revenues for the transfer. Look down to the subtotal of the expenditures and transfers out. You see 25.9. Essentially, salaries, retirement costs, workman's comp, health insurance, in addition to some other costs, operating costs that have been requested by departments. One of the things that we did is if you look just below that, there's a $2 million figure. That's saving from vacant positions in the 2020 and 2020. So if those, all of the positions that were currently vacant that have a general fund impact, if they were all frozen for a year period, $2 million in savings. One of the things that we're requesting is kind of adding some of those positions in. There are some that are not general fund related. Back to this general revenues. There are some that would, and we'll discuss those a bit. The other thing that is included in this list is deferral of the fire apparatus payment sewer fund. And so if you look at that, then you have the total expenditures of 24.2 million. If you take some adjustments from your budgetary reserves and use 650,000 of that, drops the reserve level to 5.7 million. Gives us about 23. Questions before I move on from this slide?
I do have a question. You know, I'm looking at slide number 2, which is current fiscal year 2021 general fund, the slide that you had up there, and you look at it. But when I do the numbers, it shows that the projected fund balance should be 5.06 million. But those numbers, then when you look on what you have right here on top of this, you know, the beginning budgetary number is 6.4, but you have 5.6 on the thing. Why do we have differences between the two sheets?
I think Councilman Klein, the 5.6 number is what we started with kind of at the end of this budget year. And the bottom number, the 5.7, is what proposed if we do all of the recommendations of the budget.
Yeah, but if you take 5.6 and add 23.6 and then subtract the 24.2, you're at 5.06, you're not at 5.79.
Right. If that was a typo.
You know, and then, you know, I mean, that's, and then you, when you go to your, what you have on the screen, your 5.79 matches up here, but none of the other top numbers match up. That's why I was asking the question, why do we have the discrepancy on the top numbers? And yet the 5.7 is on this one, but you know what, you follow me? If you look at this page right here,
mm-hmm.
the 5.79 at the bottom, matches up the 5.79 you have as far as the ending budgetary balance,
Okay.
past reserves. But none of the other top numbers match up at all. Where your beginning balance 5.6, up here your beginning balance is 6.4.
Hold on, I see the, so if you go to that column just to the left of the yellow one, where we started, you'll see the 5.6.
No, but that's the beginning one for 19 and 20, when you got 20 and 21 on here.
Which is the end of 1920 is the 5.6.
Yeah, but the beginning of 2021 should be what your ending balance is for 19 and 20. Am I correct?
Patricia, is that? I see what you're saying, Councilman Klein. We probably didn't go back and change that sheet, but this is the one that's important. This is the one that has the correct information.
Okay, go ahead.
Measure H, Fund 262, currently it funds 10 police officers, 7 firefighters and engineers. Some of the expenses through here, the fire apparatus, tools and equipment, body-worn cameras, and MDC radios. There is a projected slight increase in revenues for the fiscal year 2021. You can see revenues are just slightly higher, about 85,000, in addition to the beginning cash balance of 388,000. This pays for salaries and benefits for the police officers and firefighters that were noted. It also includes using about 162,000 of the reserves in this fiscal year, which would leave the ending cash balance at about 225,000. So as I mentioned, the draft expenditures in the proposed budget were 24.2 million. Of those, the lion's share of the cost are personnel costs. Measure H, the total expenditures are around 28 million. Largely the public safety department, police, fire, code enforcement, animal control make up about 80% of general fund and Measure H budgets. There are some positions that have been added to this. One was a recommendation of the council. Direction was provided at your goal setting session. That was for a deputy city clerk. Another position that was added in January, there was an overhire position for a dispatch that we've added into the budget, in addition to an associate engineer and engineering technician for the engineering division. I talked about there's a number of vacant positions included in the fiscal budget. So I think when we met in April and we talked about it, I think the number was 22, but there's been a couple of departures since that time. You can see a summary of those total. There's police officers, a couple dispatchers, firefighters, code enforcement secretary, a water resource analyst, water operator, a wastewater operator, fleet mechanic, custodian, parks maintenance worker full-time and 1 part-time, IT analyst, HR analyst, deputy finance director. There was an admin secretary, clerk, recreation supervisor, associate engineer, engineering tech, and the development of director of community development. So those are currently the positions that are vacant. That $2 million total that we showed you earlier, those were the positions and their general fund impact. There's about a half dozen on this sheet here that are not general fund positions. So for the consideration for the City Council this evening, recommending considering hiring 11 positions, the water operator, the engineering technician, and the associate engineer have no general fund impact. So we're hopeful that we could move forward with positions. The other 7 positions that is recommended from staff at this time: police officer position, a firefighter, dispatcher, 2 dispatch positions vacant, fleet mechanic, the IT analyst, and the admin secretary, which was split between code enforcement. So if the council elected to move forward with those 7 positions, there would be $103,000 cost to the general fund. That would take the general fund reserves down to that 5.9 or 5.7 million rather, or the 20. Continuing challenges and opportunities. Community center, with the closure of the COVID pandemic, hurt some of our rental opportunities. Happy to report that the Big Valley Grace Church is back holding Sunday services in the community. The landscape and lighting district, that ultimately would need adjustment. That process is the 218 process. Vote of the public. Additionally, as I mentioned, there is 1.6 million allocated to Ceres and the CARES Act funding. None of that has been included in the proposed budget. We will be scouring the budget because that, both in the current year and the next, find ways to hopefully soften the impact to the city's general fund. So at this point, would you direction from the council? So the next steps, adopt the final budget prior to September 30th. As resolutions that are prepared here are just for the first quarter, next fiscal year. So we would need to adopt a final budget prior to September 30th. And additionally, the current fiscal year's audit would be all time frame as well. So at this point in time, I would questions that the council may have.
Vice Mayor Rhino?
Okay, my first issue is that we are not balancing our budget. You guys hear me say this every time we discuss budget, that we should not be spending more than we're receiving. And I don't care that our reserves may be 23%. The point is, we need to learn to live within our means, because 23% reserve looks pretty healthy, but we don't know what's going to be coming down the pike with the whole COVID thing. And if we have, I don't know, cash reserves or 5.7 mil and our salaries are 11 mil, correct? There's a shortage there. So again, 23% looks really healthy, but bottom line is we need to not spend more than we're bringing in. That's my first question, my first comment. My other comments are to the vacant positions. I think Councilmember DeRosset brought up a really good point last meeting, that the positions that are not general fund, those that are water and sewer, we should fill. We don't need to wait until September to see what our budget is really going to be like, because that has nothing to do with the general fund, and that's on the ratepayers. So I would agree with that. As far as the other positions that do come out of the general fund, I say we still need to wait until September to see what our actual numbers are when we're going to address our real budget and make a decision. All we're doing tonight is trying to continue the city's business by passing basically an interim budget. I don't think we should fund any general fund positions until September.
Councilmember Condit?
At the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have specific questions regarding Fund 275. I know last year's budget, we had some conversations regarding that fund. I was wondering if since then, if we've come up with any alternatives in trying to pay down that deficit.
Not at this point, Councilman Condit. We were hopeful that we were going to be able to do some of that with the inclusion of the contract that was signed with Big Valley Grace at the beginning of the fiscal year that we're in. That COVID pandemic put them on pause for about 11-week period. So we are not any closer than we were last year to paying some of that down. We are in the midst of that contract. We still have 2 years with Big Valley Grace. So we're moving in the right direction, but we need to get the doors open to this facility and get people in here again.
Thank you. And I do agree with the vice mayor. I do think we need to definitely have great restraint fiscally during this time. We do not know what the future holds. We are going to see a shortfall. We are going to have to make some tough decisions, some tough cuts, and come up with a strategic way and maybe even a creative way in trying to balance this deficit and make it a balanced budget. I do have a very hard time supporting an unbalanced budget, but Mr. City Manager, I appreciate your transparency in putting this together and admitting that it is not balanced. Thank you for your work.
Fine. I guess for me, what's a little, I guess, frustrating, okay? When you look at this report and you look at the slide like I brought up, and then you come back here and look at this one, when we're talking about the money and things like that, you know, it's frustrating because you would think that they would match up. Okay? And going back and seeing, you know, whether you call it a typo or whether you call it, you know, something, and this is what we need to look at. So to me, what is the true carryover? Is it 6.4 million or is it 5.66 million? You know, I see where your expenditures are 24.2, and that's because you took out the, you know, deferred engine equipment replacement and the approved vacancy positions. You took those out of the thing. So, you know, my only comment is that's what's frustrating for me when you look at these two things and you're trying to marry them up, is what is the true thing? Because again, on your slide number 2, your projected expenses at 24.2 doesn't even reflect until you get back into, you know, slide 10 or whatever, that it does not include those other two things. So, you know, what is the true carryover for 2021? 6.4 or the 5.6?
We believe it to be 6.4.
Okay.
Councilmember Drossett? We just agreed last meeting, I think, or the meeting before, to hire dispatch. Says that there's 2 positions for dispatch on here.
Yeah, we had an employee depart. So the interview process, so there's 2 more positions. So they're in the process to hire the one. There's still 2 more vacancies.
And then I appreciate Councilman Rhino in regards to agreeing with the water operator and the positions that are not paid by the general fund and they are the rate paid. Fleet mechanic. We just had somebody retire from the fleet mechanic, correct?
Yeah, in March.
March, so pretty recently. Right?
Yep.
And obviously the 2 firefighters, I'll get to my point in a second. 2 firefighter positions and the 2 police officer positions that's on hold, right? Was part of the budget, but we're not hiring those positions. I get that. We just lost the firefighter and the police officer recently, somewhat, correct? What happens, you know, and again, according to some of the colleagues, which is great, that what if for some reason tomorrow we have 3 more firefighters resign or go someplace else, 3 more police officers? We're going to have a budget that's not balanced. Are we not going to hire those positions? And so my point is this, and you know, I think, and again, I said this at the last meeting that we had, that we just lost those 2 positions. We have the summertime fire strike team. This is the burn season, for crying out loud. I seriously believe that in order to give our citizens what they should have, living in the city series, we don't lessen the overtime or increase the overtime by not hiring those 2 positions. I'm not saying hire the 2 firefighters, the 2 police officers. I'm saying the ones that we just lost. Or we're going to be in the habit of, well, we don't know until September. We had somebody jump ship and they went to Tracy. I just think that it's important for the citizens to be able to put the right amount of people on the street. I understand the deficit. I understand not bringing the reserves down to a certain aspect of it. We're concerned about the COVID. We do have the CARES Act. We're getting 1.6 million at some point in time. Might not be able to pay for those situations that we're in and the salaries, but again, you might be able to supplant some of that monies. I just think it's important to be able to do that. So I have a huge concern in regard to, we do have people leave all the time to a certain degree, that we need to try to retain these individuals and give them support.
Councilmember Klein? So my question is, and I know this was discussion, the 2 positions we just lost, with 1 in fire and 1 in police, because they decided They went elsewhere. Those two are not reflected, if I'm correct, are not reflected in the freezing positions correct now that's proposed. Am I correct? Or are they reflected into the freeze positions?
I believe they're reflected in the frozen positions.
The ones that we just lost within the last couple of a month?
Yeah, this list was prepared last week, so it's the latest and greatest.
So it is, okay, that was my question.
We have 3 frozen positions in each department.
Three firefighters, 4 police officers.
Councilmember Condit?
I know in the staff's conclusion, it's considering regionalizing our fire services. Have we thought that further? And also, have we also considered a JPA possibility?
Those discussions are currently ongoing. Nothing finalized yet. When we do have something, we'll be bringing that to the council for consideration. If there was a regionalization effort of the fire department or JPA for that matter, there's likely to be savings.
Do we have an idea what those savings could potentially be, or not yet?
Probably in the order of at least $500,000 a year.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Rhino?
My concern with addressing Councilmember DeRossett's comments about filling police and fire and how it's a disservice to the public is, I know that we're using an excuse about waiting until September, but what if things really are worse than what we're projecting, and we have to take an overall look at reorganizing the city? And that could happen. And are we just going to keep 2 departments and not do anything to them and then have the brunt of whatever happens fall on the shoulders of all the other employees? I know how important police and fire are, but I'm just leery of spending general fund money. We don't know what our situation is going to be. And again, we're already, if you look at this sheet with the yellow line down it, that we're already spending more than we're bringing in. What's that going to do? What's that going to do if we have? And we don't even know what our true numbers are.
Well, the last time that we had met, those 2 positions were not in this. So I appreciate that, because I thought that 2 positions not in this particular area, meaning that, and then I just kind of go back and I understand 100%. And again, if looking on the outside, I agree with you. But are we going to, if somebody, I guess a good question, if somebody retires or is gone tomorrow, we're just not going to hire because we're still going to be in a deficit.
Well, but I think if you look at all the position of the wants, and we heard at our last meeting from various department heads that they did have people leave and that they wanted those positions filled. I think when you look at the positions, it's all vacant because somebody held them previously. You see what I'm saying? So everybody has lost somebody or some position, and everybody wants to fill those, of course. I don't know. I just don't want to see us hiring a lot out of our general fund. And then I saw where Public Works said they could hold off on the water analyst and shift money or shift those duties to other Public Works employees. And I'm wondering why they would do that when it looks like the water analyst is not funded by the general fund.
I'll let Jeremy speak to that. I think that there was an idea of maybe shifting some of those positions around within the Public Works Department to assume those duties. Jeremy, do you want to speak to that?
But why would you do that when your Public Works people are already overtaxed? And if this position is not even touching general fund, why wouldn't you fill it? It's not a needed position.
So it's not that it's not needed, it's just we're trying to shift the positions around. The water resource analyst position did a lot for us, creating graphs, charts to help us through the water conservation, through SBX 7, through the assembly bills that the state handed down. Those are continuing, but the efforts need to be somewhere else at the time. So what I mean by that is that, for example, the assembly bill for the Water Affordability Act, we need more help, management and oversight in the finance area for the water fund to help manage the water affordability. We've got to give, up to 3 notices. We've got to deliver door hangers, plus there has to be direction to staff on what to do. There needs to be additional services and additional support for staff in the field. We have 2 customer service technicians that, if those were water distribution operators, which is the equivalent to the same money, but if they were reclassified as water distribution operators, they could actually do the work in the field when they go out there rather than creating a work order for other staff to come back through and do it. So with the addition of with the analysts that I have in the office, we've assumed some of the responsibilities just because of the amount of reporting that's required to the state now. There's the water affordability. There's additional services, especially on the finance department, coming for garbage, recycling, organics, the whole program there, which hopefully in a month or so I'll be bringing a presentation to you for that. So it's not a matter of the position not being needed. It's where do we get the biggest bang for the buck? And just having water resource analysts just dedicated to doing charts and graphs and reports and whatnot helps us. But at this time, we could use a few other hands doing a few other projects and some oversight.
But you couldn't rework that job title so that it could capture some of what is going to be putting the pressure on finance department?
So we could rework the job title a little bit, but we already have 2 analysts, and the 2 analysts that I have now working on garbage, ADA, wastewater permitting, the urban water management plan, the master plans, everything else, can't help the ladies in finance issue the 4 notices that are required for water affordability, manage all of that. It can't help the 2 staff members that are in the field going out and doing field verifications for finance. They can go out and replace the equipment when they're doing it rather than create another work order.
It's unusual when you have kind of free money that you're willing to give up a position.
It's more of where's the best need, so it's not free money. But
well, it's freer than the general fund.
We're trying to be as fiscally conscious as we possibly can. So the water fund is being taxed, and it's being challenged and taxed very heavily right now, especially with the surface water project where we are with it. We've got a bunch of capital projects we need to get done, and I got a lot of issues with wellhead treatment. So we're really taxed in all those areas.
So then should we look at those positions that are funded entirely by water and rethink those? Because it's taxing the water fund?
It's taxing the water fund.
Yeah, isn't that what you just said? The ratepayers, what they're paying?
No. So the positions that water resource analyst position free, if we take that position and free that up, that allows us to put monies, it's still being water funded because the 2 positions in the customer service are funded by water. The additional help that we would be providing for finance would be water funded. So we're not taking water fund monies away from the water fund or taking a position away. We're taking that one position and spreading it.
Councilmember Condit?
I just have a question for clarification. So reading over the staff report, if all those positions were to remain vacant, we would have 2 million in savings, correct, Mr. Westberg?
Yeah, yes, Councilman Condit, just a little over 2 million.
But if we were to move forward with potentially hiring, we would save 1.4, I believe, roughly, as opposed to the 2 million.
That is correct.
And just a clarification as well on Fund 275. If we were to implement that or have that reflected in the general fund, what would our reserves really be?
Right. That fund balance is currently around 1.5 million, so it would drop the reserves by $1.5 million.
That'd be below the threshold we've set as far as our reserve.
That would be pretty close, be close to that 18% floor.
Thank you.
Councilmember Drossett? This might be for Jeremy. Sorry about that. Fleet mechanic. How many fleet mechanics do we have?
Right now we have 2.
We have 2, and we had 3.
Correct.
How many vehicles?
One of them got promoted to the supervisor.
And then 1 retired, correct?
The supervisor retired.
And then how many vehicles do they deal with on a yearly basis?
Up to the fleet's around 400 vehicles, pieces of equipment between fire apparatus, trucks, tractors, everything else we have in public works, about 400.
And so if there are only 2 people working instead of 3, how much overtime might there be, or there be any?
It's going to get interesting. You know, here we're talking about shifting schedules now. So the department's on 4 10-hour day schedules, and we're talking about shifting it to 5/8, because that'll give us a little bit more time on the Fridays when everybody else is off, because we've got 8 PD cars that we've got to get built. We've got all these brand new fire apparatus coming in that have to have inspections done on them. We've got a heavy load right now.
And so this is a position that you think we need to have?
Well, I know we need it. It's not a matter of think. I know it is. And the other thing that's interesting with the fleet is that when vehicles come into the shop, we only charge for the vehicle. So even though there's general fund impacts to the fleet position, it's only when the vehicle comes in. It's not a direct allocation. You know, if the car doesn't come in, we don't charge it out.
But how much a year would the one fleet position be? You know,
It's $59,000 out of the general fund.
$59,000. So I'm just going to go here and kind of sound like an attorney. We just bought 3 brand new trucks, then some, and we have some new police cars. And I driving down the road, I think we have some just new vehicles anyway. We have 400 of them. That I'm not saying that we need to hire all these. We just lost somebody. And we're not going to hire that position. We probably shouldn't have bought the vehicle.
Okay, so
Mayor, can I ask one other question?
Sure.
Under the resolution, Mr. Westbrook, the 2020-69, it says the position for fiscal year 2021 shown on attachment 2 are hereby approved. And it looks to me like all of the positions are adopted. Is that not correct? I mean, it shows asterisks on some of them, but I don't see what an asterisk means.
Yeah, those are the positions in the budget, so they're just reflected as their positions that we currently hold. If the council doesn't authorize hiring any of those frozen, then we just leave them. They're just not filled.
Okay, so let me see if I can kind of summarize this here a little bit. Obviously, we have a resolution in front of us to adopt interim budget. And the question at hand is, I think I heard consensus from the council that all of those non-general fund positions that are funded through enterprise funds and other things, the council appears to be willing to give direction to move forward with hiring of those.
Correct.
So then the other question is those positions that are in the general fund, and I'm hearing Drossett saying he'd like to move forward with some of those. Third council. I know saying that they hold until September, but what's your feeling?
Well, there's a couple of them that I would like to see the impact. I mean, I'm looking on this sheet, it's $603,000 with the 7 positions, but I'm looking at, police, fire, and dispatch, and I'm not talking, but I can't read that very well right now. I'd like to at least see, dispatcher, positions hired with what that table and stress of the job, that's something I would like to see.
If you were giving direction right now to them, are you saying you agree along with Councilman Drossett that you'd like to add some of these other general fund positions back into the interim portion, or do you want to wait till September?
There's a couple I'd like to add back in.
Councilman Klein, dispatcher position, general fund impacts $87,500
87 for one?
for one.
which is what percentage point of the reserve? 1 percentage point, a half a percentage point?
It's probably less than a percentage point.
So what's 1%? What's 1 percentage point to the general fund reserve? $500,000 is 1 percentage point? Okay.
So, if I look at this, interesting, I see both sides of this. I can definitely agree with my colleagues that believe that we should only hire those from the enterprise fund and wait on the general fund. And I also hear and understand the need for some of the other critical ones here. If I guess if I'm looking at it, there probably might be 1 or 2 from the general fund. Not that I wouldn't say that I wouldn't be willing to order all of them in September. I am just still also very concerned with what the budget might look like in September, how that could affect us, in as much as I did this 100 times a year. Dollar, I can't spend $1.50, so gotta find a way to deal with what I have forward with it. So I might be willing to say, if we're looking at the general fund position, dispatcher position or something, at this point, yeah, probably go ahead and move forward with that. The other ones, I think I would like to wait on till we see how this unfolds. I mean, September will be here before we know it. Big of a hit. And even if we were to authorize all these, I don't know that you're going to be able to hire much before then anyway. Support my argument very well. Start in September, then after that, but I think I'd feel more comfortable. Things clear up. If we get to September, things haven't cleared up, have to be having the hard discussion of additional positions. At that point, we're probably going to have not only do we not have other positions, do we not? Especially if we decide that we want to other things. I think that's why. I guess what you need, Tom, is, well, before we do that, I need to open it up to the public comment, and then
Mayor, could I ask you for your clarification again? You were okay with 1 dispatch?
are we down 2 or we're down 1?
They're hiring 1, and I believe we're down 2 more. Is that correct, Chief?
So by getting 1, we would get back to where we are. Is that kind of?
We lost 1, and if I got 1, that would put us to 10, but I still have 1 out on long. So the overhire would be.
But you could get by with just adding 1 in the short term. But this time, Diane, can you see if there's anyone in the I'll bring it back to the council. Do one of the members to make a motion or further discussion?
Mayor, I apologize. Someone just raised their hand.
Okay.
Name is YAS. Yep, they just lowered their hand.
Oh, okay. Discussion.
further discussion, I would like to make a motion to adopt the resolution number 2020-69 for an interim budget with the addition of, not sure how I'm going to say this, that the positions that are not general fund be hired, and the one dispatch position that does include general funding be hired now.
I'll second.
I'll second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Condit,
Nay.
Councilmember Durosset,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhino,
Yes?
Councilmember Klein,
Yes.
and Mayor Vieira.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Item number 17, the COVID discussion. Westbrook?
Actually, if we can go back, there was two resolutions for that. There's 2020-70. It's the appropriations limit.
Move to approve number 2020-70.
Second?
Motion and a second. Can roll call vote?
Councilmember Condit,
Nay.
Councilmember Durosset,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rhino,
Yes?
Councilmember Klein,
Yes.
and Mayor Vieira.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
I will move to item 17. Discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, Council, the COVID continues to be a thing in our state and nation and worldwide, having an impact. And some of those new guidance coming down from the state are face masks. I know that a lot of the city halls around the county are still closed. There are some that we're considering opening for appointments. Our city hall is continuing to be closed. We do have some protective measures in place that we were actually recently installed as recent as last week. So with the ever-changing world, I want to open the city hall again. Just wanted to let the council know we'll probably be stepping that back in, maybe having like an afternoon open in the afternoons for a couple of weeks and then going back to full time. We know that our staff will have to protect themselves when they're interacting with the public. Primarily, we're going to see a lot of heavy lifting in our finance division, in addition to probably the building and engineering division. Just letting you know that we'll be stepping back that kind of opening of the doors to the public members over the next couple of weeks. Also wanted to mention we had kind of a minor recession. I think that will really give us good direction, opening the city council meetings to the public again. And so I'll work with Diane Perez and Lord to kind of figure out how that could work. But my recommendation is that we would move forward with that at your next meeting on August 13th. Back to that. Sorry, July 13th, rather. Sorry. Okay, then we'll move in that direction to have our meetings open to the public at your next meeting. Only the item I had for an update.
Is there anyone on the council that would like to have an item placed on a future agenda? Report? Nothing to report. Councilmember Klein?
Well, at StanCog meeting last week, there was some stuff brought up from some information that they were talking about the CARE reimbursement, which was the COVID-19 reimbursement from the state, and I believe the county is controlling that. So my question to staff is, we're looking at what we can do as far as getting some reimbursement. Because of COVID-19, we would not be having the Zoom meetings like we do. So, if you could look into if the Zoom meeting costs can be included in reimbursement.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point, Councilman Klein. So we did a lot of upgrades to this facility so that we could accommodate that. The finance director and I have that on our list of things to put in the spending plan so that we can get reimbursement for the expenses that we've done in the community center.
Ricardo?
Thank you. I was contacted by a constituent before the meeting regarding a crosswalk light on Moffett and Caswell. It appears to be broken. It's continuously flashing or blinking apparently. I'm going to have the constituent send me a photograph of that and I'll forward it over to the city manager. Besides that, since we are kind of moving in the direction of reopening our meetings to the public, I was wondering if possible, if we can get the beautification meetings rolling again. I know I've been contacted by some of the committee members, just wondering when we'll continue those, but with the public being welcome back, I think maybe we can start moving in that direction.
Yeah, and we can certainly probably find a room in this building to social distance and accommodate that.
Vice Mayor Rhino?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Also? Yes.
Thank you. Since we're going to be opening up again, there's some of the recognition things that were suggested by Councilman Condit. We'll move forward with that so we can get people into the building for those recognitions. Just wanted to mention that 4th of July, as we heard the public comment today, there's a lot of booms and bangs happening around the community. Our police department and our fire department will be working again together again this year for enforcement of the fireworks as we get to the 4th of July. So I want everybody to stay safe and illegals on the ground.
Laura?
Good evening, and I wanted just to let everyone know we're getting ready to reopen the community center and having summer programs. Right now registration is open and you have multiple options. You can take virtual classes or come into the center or go out to River Bluff Sports Park to take a summer sport camp. And we've worked closely with our contractors and our employees to make sure that we're following the proper protocol. For example, disinfecting equipment or rooms after each use, temperature taking, and other things. So we really want to invite the public to register. Again, our summer camps and classes start July 6th. The series activity guide is online and you can register online. We really highly suggest to everyone to register online, and as it gets closer to your class date or camp date, we'll be sending you out information. And we look forward to having you back here at the community center or one of our programs and services this summer. Thank you.
Collins?
I had a chance to speak to the sheriff, and his airship would not be available to spot for fireworks violation. I have nothing else to report.
Rain?
I want to remind everybody that our 4th of July campaign next Monday, a week from today, our phone lines and our email will start going live, and we'll start monitoring those and start dispatching accordingly to those. Also, since fireworks has been a pretty big topic today, we are aware that this 4th of July is going to be probably bigger than last year. Anticipating that everybody being locked up, coming out now, there's going to be a lot of people out. 4th of July falls on a Saturday this year. Another thing that's going to add some extra work for us. We're anticipating that, and we're going to staff what we think is going to be appropriate, but we are going to be running around. We will do the best we can to get as many of these fireworks as we can. That's all I have.
To answer Councilmember Condit's question, the crosswalk lights there at Moffett and Caswell, the parts have been ordered, been on order for a couple. Nothing else, Mayor.
Ren? Yeah.
I just wanted to give the council a heads up on our pavement preservation project. We are working to negotiate a change order because we have another CIP project, a separate project that would be funded with sewer enterprise funds to slurry the roads at the treatment plant. So that'll probably be coming, or that will be coming to you at our next meeting. All I have.
Please.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Our department's been busy training on the new apparatus. We'll continue that training until we can get them in service. Also, last week, we held our final promotions, and we made that announcement last week. So promoting to battalion chief will be Captain Brett Presson. Promoting to captain will be Engineer Kripe. And promoting to engineer will be firefighter Knight. See them, please congratulate them. Very proud of everybody's efforts in that process. And also, if anybody at home's out there watching, remember we have our amnesty program for turning in those illegal fireworks. So turn them into the fire department downtown. Thank you.
Last but not least, Supervisor DeMartini, we see you there. I don't know if you had any comments this evening.
I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I'm not very good with computers, and I just can't wait till you have your meetings in person again. I just wanted to tell you that tomorrow the county will be voting on to distribution of the money that we got from the federal government. 15 million of it is for the cities, which 1.6 million would be to cover the city of Ceres expenses. So that's on tomorrow's agenda. I'm quite certain that it will pass. We also have another 36 million in reserves, and there's 30 million for our health department, which we spent about 15 million already. And then community development, which is kind of helping the businesses that have been financially impacted by this coronavirus, and that's another 15 million. So that's on our agenda for tomorrow, along with that interim budget. The only comment I could just make is that I have my volume up on this computer all the way, and I have very difficulty hearing what people are saying on your council. The volume is set very low, at least on this computer, and I have it up all the way. I just wanted to make that comment. Sometimes it's difficult to hear what you're saying. But anyway, that's all I have tonight. And that budget will item will surely pass tomorrow. And then we'll be discussing the governor's order to wear masks too, what we're going to do with that. Probably nothing, I would think. I don't think our sheriff's department's going to go around ticketing people not wearing a mask, and they've got more important things to do. But we're going to have that discussion tomorrow. And that's all I have.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if you heard earlier tonight when we said at the next meeting, we're going to be moving to back to a physical meeting. So hopefully you'll be able to attend and won't have to worry about the audio system.
Yeah, well, I'll be there if you have it in the meeting. I can get by with this computer, but I really have a difficult time with it. And the volume is just extremely low at times. I don't know if everybody's having the same problem that I am or not. But I don't hear everything you say, but I'll be there next time.
Great, thank you. With that, we will adjourn to our next regularly scheduled meeting, which will be on Monday, July 13th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Thank you.